Chapter 254 Halal Rape vs. Haram Rape, Part 14. The second kidnap of the innocent girl Mona had moved the people of Al-Gadarif city to put a pressure on the police authority to hasten the trial of the criminals who kidnapped and raped her. For 3 days, the police authority tried to find any link or connection between the first kidnap and the second kidnap of the innocent girl. After harsh interrogations and careful investigations, the police authority accepted the fact that it is Abu Shukura's mistake that led the innocent girl to be kidnapped again. Therefore, the two kidnaps are considered to be two separate crimes. The investigations further threw light on Intisar's case. Nevertheless, neither the public nor the police authority had sympathy on her. She is considered to be a rebellious and disobedient wife. For that reason, everyone believes she must be arrested and forced by the police authority to submit herself to her lawful husband. A week later, the final trial of Al-Waish and his men is scheduled to take place on a Friday morning at 10 a.m. There is no day in the history of Al-Gadarif city that such a huge crowd of people had gathered together to witness the trial. Such huge crowd had not happened even when the spring of water, which came to be known as Faqih Abu Nafora, that showed many signs and wonders by opening the eyes of the blind and causing the lame to walk and the deaf to hear. Many people had come from every city and village of Sudan to receive healing and to witness such a great wonder of nature. Nonetheless, if all those who visited that site are counted together, they will not make half of the number that gathered to witness the trial of the criminals who kidnapped and raped the innocent girl. From 4 a.m. the criminal court compound began to be filled in with people. At 6 a.m., there is no room left for the latecomers to enter the compound area. So, the streets surrounding the court building are crowded with people. Some of them had climbed on tall trees. Others had mounted the neighboring buildings. While the most fortunate people had sat on the court walls. It is declared that the court's spacious hall will be opened to receive people at 8:30 a.m. Since the number of the people is estimated by the court security guards to exceed the possible number that the hall can accommodate, it is announced that people should stand in queue. As soon as the hall is filled to its maximum capacity, the rest of the queue will be dismissed. The first 5 rows are reserved for the top officials in the government and the VIP in the society. Under the VIP class come the businessmen, the politicians, the top government officials, and the religious leaders. The university's professors, the school's teachers, school's students, the social workers, the soldiers, the lawyers, the judges, the medical doctors and nurses, the engineers, and the university graduates are forced to stand in the queue side by side with the sweepers, the beggars, the loafers, the crooks, the jerks, and the like. There are 4 entrances to the hall. The first one is reserved for the VIP, the second for the judge and his jury, the third for the suspects and the guards, and the fourth for the public. Only the 4th door will be opened at 8 a.m. to admit the crowd. The other 3 doors will be opened at 9 a.m. Since there is still a lot of time remaining for the public door to be opened, we will spend that time to have a look at the crowd. In the long queue there are all kinds of people. Just let us select a few of the associations and organizations that gathered to witness the trial of Al-Waish and his gang. There are the Women's Union, the Women's Rights Society, the Women's Protection Society, the Association of Innocent Girls. This group is founded recently by some female atheists and communists. It consists of the city prostitutes and call girls, the Muslim Brotherhood group, and the Muslim Sisterhood Association. Each one of those groups is carrying a big placard. In every placard there is written in capital letters a reminder to the judge and his jury as what Al-Waish and his gangsters are deserved to receive as punishments for their crime against the innocent girl. To mention what is written in each placard, we can list them according to their seriousness. The Women's Union. Hang Al-Waish and his evil gang. The Women's Rights Society. We want full rights and equality with men. The Women's Protection Society. Destruction and death to the human beasts. The Association of the Innocent Girls. Avenge us against our enemies and rapists. The Muslim Sisterhood Association. Stone al-Waish's gang and veil the women by hijabs, niqabs, and burqas. The Muslim Brotherhood Group. Death to Israel and death to America and viva to Islam. In space, beauty, security, legality, and fairness, the criminal court is different from the Sharia court. The secular court hall is 10 times larger in space than that of the Islamic court. Usually, 10 people can be seated comfortably on one bench, but on that day 25 to 30 people are painfully stuffed as if they are sardine fishes packed in tins. Most of the people are having their little ones sitting on their laps. There is no such thing called child abuse in the third world. The parents can do whatever they like with their little ones, sons, and daughters. They can beat their children day and night and no one will take them away from them. You can even scourge with whip your disobedient son or rebellious wife or daughter in the street and no one can dare to stop you or report you to the police. You can even flog them with heavy rod and nobody will dare to hinder you while you are correcting your progeny. In fact, people will praise you for discipline your son or daughter. Anyway, the police officers, the security guards, the government agents are scattered everywhere. All of them are in uniforms except the government agents who are in civilian dresses. Some of those government agents are standing in the queue, some are sitting on the benches inside the hall, and some are climbing on walls and trees. They are engaged in talking with the people and trying to find out who dare to speak against the government. So, on that day when the trial is over, not only al-Waish and his gang will be convicted, but many innocent people will go behind bars too. At 9:30 a.m., there is a sudden silence ensued in the overcrowded hall. All the faces are turned towards the VIP door. The powerful people of the society, due to richness, corruption, exploitation, politics, and religion, began to walk in one by one. They are well dressed up, fed up, and proudly looking up. They sat comfortably 5 in every bench. Those who are wronged by them, which are many, wished in their hearts that the judge should pass the death sentence on them too. For they are not only kidnapped and raped their daughters and exploited and enslaved their sons, but sucked their bloods as well. Only a few people among the crowd wished to be exalted one day by the society to such honorable positions. While the crowd of people are looking up at the powerful with eyes full of hatred and envy, and the VIP are looking down upon them with eyes full of pride and arrogance, the third door is thrown open. The upper and lower classes stopped confronting each other and shifted their hatred towards the criminal's entrance. First they saw 3 female guards entered in with their guns in hands. Followed them immediately a young beautiful girl. The girl walked in with her head bowed down and her eyes full of tears. 3 policewomen marched in behind her. One of them directed her by the hand to her seat. The girl sat on her seat without lifting up her face. After that, the audience saw another group of male guards walking backward inside the hall with their guns pointing at some people who are yet to come in. Followed behind them the al-Waish's 5 gangsters. They are decked with chains from top to bottom. Followed behind them are another group of male guards who are walking forward with their machine guns ready to fire at any moment. When the gangsters sat in their cage, the criminals' entrance continued to flow in with other men and women. They are the shameless singers and dancers who are arrested with the gang. Every 2 prostitutes and every 2 gays are chained together. Their faces are devoid of shame and guilt. Some of them are chewing gums and happily smiling to the crowd. Some of the women had recognized their clients and waved their hands to them. The men too waved their hands to some of their acquaintances. The guards quickly pushed them to their appointed seats. They all sat around the innocent girl. The crowd looked forward for the appearance of the notorious criminal al-Waish, the grand gangster. His coming is delayed beyond the expected time. People are worried. For some of them had already prepared some bad words to shout them on his face. Some had decided to curse him. Others wanted to tell him what kind of punishment he deserved. Some who are very bitter had brought with them some things to throw on his face. Things like rotten tomatoes, potatoes, onions, old shoes, etc. The jail authority had expected something like that to happen and hence decided to bring him in only after the judge and his jury enter the court hall. Another accused who is not directly involved in the rape and kidnap crime, but is under a bribery charge, is asked to step in after the dancers and singers occupied their seats around the innocent girl. When the crowd saw him, they mistook him for the accursed Al-Wayash. In a few minutes, the old man is turned into a red pillar of rotten vegetables. Somebody announced loudly that the judge and his jury will enter the courtroom in a few minutes. The loud noise which is created due to the vegetables attack on the old man died instantly. Everybody stood on his feet except the miserable old man. His Majesty the judge walked in surrounded by 6 jurymen and many security men. While the people are gazing with great admiration on the judge and his jury, another suspect is escorted inside the hall through the criminal's entrance. He is surrounded by 7 police guards who are armed to the teeth. The man is chained with heavy iron fetters and shackles from head to feet. He is walking with difficulty due to the heavy chains. That man is taken to the criminal's cage where the 5 gangsters and the miserable old man are seated. When he is carefully placed inside the iron cage, the guards left him and went to their reserved seats. Unfortunately, the man found there are only 6 seats and none of them is empty. He recognized his gangsters, but he is surprised to see the miserable old man occupying his seat. He got annoyed with the intruder, and like a lion who found his den being occupied by a wolf, he slapped him out of his seat. The old man fell flat on his face. Al-Wayash and the judge sat at the same time on their reserved seats. It took the old man long time to come back to his senses. Instead of standing on his feet, the old man preferred to sit down. His eyes surveyed the audience, and when he saw the rich and powerful VIP people, he remembered that he is once proud and arrogant like them. He shed tears for his miserable condition. A courtman stood between the judge and the audience and called the persecutor to come forward and read the charge sheet. Police Inspector Yasin came forward and began to read. Your Honor, the judge, the respectable jury, and the revered court, I bring before you the case of the brutish crime which has been committed by the notorious criminal Al-Wayash and his gang against the innocent girl. The charge sheet is originally prepared by Police Inspector Hussein Hassan Hassanan, who is formally in charge of the case. Due to his involvement in a bribery charge, he is dismissed and I took over. All the 6 gangsters have admitted their involvement in the rape and kidnap crime. Through police interrogations, the police authority is able to gather the following statements of the 6 criminals. I, Osman Mahmoud Al-Ajabu, who is known as Al-Wayash, confess that I took part on the kidnap and rape crime of the innocent girl, Mona Salah al-Din Hashim. One day, while I was driving my car, I saw a young beautiful girl coming out of her school. I stopped the car and asked her for a ride. The girl refused my invitation and continued to walk along the road. I followed her until she reached her house. When she saw me sitting in my car and smiling to her, she walked in and slammed her door on my face. I didn't take it to the heart, for I know love starts that way. Next day, I came at the same time and waited for her to come out of her school. This time, I brought a gold chain as present to her. For I know doves need sugar water to tame them. When she came close to my car, I stepped out and offered her my costly gift. The girl took the chain from my hand and threw it on the ground and stamped it with her shoes. After her angry reaction, she spat on my face and walked away. I felt very much insulted and humiliated by her rude behavior, and I planned her kidnap. I sent to her, one of my best friends, a young handsome man, by the name of Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Gabber. This Omar is also known as Al-Sahir or the Magician. He is nicknamed the Magician by my boys because he has a strong masculine attraction, which causes each dove to fall madly in love with him at first sight. Al-Sahir met the young beautiful dove near her school and enticed her with love and lured her to his car. After spending with her some time in sweet heart-to-heart talk and some hot kissing, passionate hugging, and doing other love stuff, the magician offered to drop her at her house. She gladly accepted the offer. Instead of her house he brought her to my residence. The dove did not shout for help or resist because Al-Sahir spread some powder on her face, which rendered her blacked out. When she regained her consciousness she found herself being surrounded by other 4 boys including Al-Sahir. After that, my 5 boys brought her to me. In the beginning, the dove is not happy to see me. My boys left us alone and gone. She recognized my face and that made her more mad. I asked her to marry me, but she refused. She wanted to go, but I didn't allow her. While I was holding her in my arms, I was overcome with uncontrollable desire for her delicate body. I had sex with her. After that, she told me, "You have destroyed my life." She said further that she will kill herself before her parents will find out and kill her. I told her, "I will marry you and take you to another city where no one will know you." First she refused my proposal, but when I offered her some money and gold she agreed to marry me. We made a big celebration and got married. Nevertheless, one of the neighbors thought it is illegal marriage and informed the police. On the second day, the policemen raided the house and arrested my bride and my 5 boys. They also detained many innocent people who came for the celebration. I was tipped off about the police raid by one of my cop's friend just a few minutes before it took place. He phoned my cell phone and informed me about the approaching trucks of the police cops. I had no time to take my bride with me. I just jumped out of the window and fled. On the same day, I traveled by a lorry to the last city in eastern Sudan. A few days later, I was sold by 2 of my best friends to the cops. Unfortunately, those 2 friends are Al-Sahir the Magician and Shakosh the Hammer. In accordance, I was arrested by the Port Sudan police and transferred by a police wagon to Al-Gadarif jail. When Inspector Yassin finished reading Al-Waish's statement, all the audience began to voice their protests against the statement. The judge had to strike his desk many times to bring order and silence in the courtroom. When at last order and silence are restored to the courtroom, Inspector Yassin began to read the innocent girl's statement. I, Mona Shams al-Din Hashim, which is known as the innocent girl. Every day I walk from my house to my school on foot. I usually go through a lane which is a shortcut to my house. Very often, I see cars parking in that lane. I don't pay much attention to those cars. Once I happened to look into one of those cars and I saw a boy and a girl sitting inside it and holding each other and doing some bad stuff. So, after that day, whenever I see a car I take it for lover's car and I turn my face to the opposite direction. I do that because I have been told by my parents that such kind of relation always leads to bad end. Only bad girls do such foolish thing. One day, I saw a small black car parking in that lane. As usual, I walked by it and turned my face to the opposite direction. I felt some hands grabbed me from behind and closed my mouth. They dragged me inside the car. I saw some boys inside the car. Before I can do anything to alarm other people and call for help, the boys closed my mouth by big tape and tied up my hands and legs. They forced my body underneath between the seats. That drove their car and took me to a very far place. Then, they dragged me out of the car and took me to a house. Inside that house, I saw a horrible-looking man which they called their chief. They also called him Al-Waish. He is, as his name means, a beast man. That wicked human beast had subjected me to a very painful and brutish rape. After repeatedly raping me, he allowed his 5 men who kidnapped me to rape me too. The last thing I can remember in that fateful day before I lost my consciousness, is that my body bleeds so much. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself in the hospital. Inspector Yasin waited for some time for the audience to wipe away their tears and remove their wrath on Al-Waish and his gangsters, before he can read the next statement. It is a long wait because the audience continued to curse and insult the gangsters for a while. It is the judge again who restored order and silence in the courtroom. I, Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Gabber, who is known as Al-Sahir the Magician, confess that I have been sent by my leader Al-Waish along with other 4 boys to kidnap a girl from her school. The other 4 boys are called Hausi, Sahuda, Hamori, and Wada Brag. Al-Waish had given us full descriptions of the girl whom he claimed to have fallen in love with her at first sight. He drew the kidnap plan for us and also supplied us with a car which is stolen 4 days before the kidnap took place. We launched our car in a lonely lane not far from the school and waited until the girl showed up. We took her by surprise and carried her to our leader. As soon as we brought her to him, Al-Waish prepared for the wedding and called singers and dancers from Kassala city. On that day, he spent generously on his wedding. With the blessings of the exalted Allah and His Messenger, our Prophet Muhammad, the marriage of Al-Waish and the girl is conducted by Maulana Muhammad Ahmed Taha. On the same evening, the bridegroom and his bride consummated their marriage. When Al-Waish is fully drunk and satisfied, he forced me and the other 4 boys to go to the bride and have sex with her. When I refused and resisted, he threatened to kill me. Next day morning, somebody informed the cops about the marriage. When the cops raided the house and jumped in, they beaten us with rods and shot dead some of the innocent singers and dancers. Later on, we learned from the cops that our leader had escaped. Inside the police headquarters we had been badly beaten up. 2 hours later, I was told by Police Inspector Hussein that I had been set free on bail paid by my wealthy brother-in-law Mr. Osman Al-Taib. I had been taken to my house and there I received good care and medical treatment by a doctor and 4 nurses. A week later, I was visited by a friend of mine known as Shakosh the Hammer. From him, I got a message from Al-Waish through which he asked for some money to help him to escape out of the country. I gave Shakosh the money and he left on the same night. Next day, I learned through Police Inspector Hussein that Shakosh is arrested as soon as he left my house. From him the police authority came to know the hiding place of Al-Waish. I was rearrested a few days later along with my brother-in-law Mr. Osman Al-Taib. After Omar's statement is read, the audience didn't react on the same way as before. This time, some of them even walked out of their benches and headed towards the 6 criminals and the miserable old man. They determined to execute vigilante justice on the criminals inside the courtroom before the judge should pass the death sentence on them. The guards and some policemen intervened and spared the lives of the criminals for a while. The judge and his jury decided to pacify the angry mob and hence called for an hour break. During the break, the 6 criminals, the miserable old man, and the singers and dancers are taken out of the courtroom. Only the innocent girl is left behind. Mona sat alone under the focus of hundreds of eyes. Even though she didn't look at them, but she felt their eyes are burning her face like flames of fire. Their whispers are as tongues of angry beasts passing through her ears and entering her body and causing great pain to her old wounds. She knew that everyone in the courtroom held her responsible for her kidnap and rape. Her cousin, to whom she is engaged before her kidnap, had broken their engagement and spread nasty rumor about her. He blamed her for her kidnap. He told his relatives and friends that Mona accepted their offer when the 5 boys offered to drop her at her house. She was willingly entered their car. If she is a good and innocent girl, she shouldn't agree to enter their car. After such a nasty rumor spread far and wide in the city, everyone believed that Mona is a careless and playful girl who can go with any rich boy who offers to give her a ride in his car. Her rape by the evil man Haj Mohammed, which did not receive so much publicity, had strengthened the above belief and added more pain and suffering to the terribly abused girl, Mona. In addition to all this, her second kidnap is the final nail on her coffin, which removed any lingering doubt about her innocence. Accordingly, the phrase, "the innocent girl," is just an empty phrase without having any meaning for many people. They say it by their lips, but in their minds, they strongly believed that she is to be blamed for whatever had happened to her. They prefer her to die rather than live with such a shame. She will be crowned by them as the innocent girl, if she had killed herself. Or even if her father had killed her to purge away the shame from his family. That also will be held as great deed and honor. Those are the thoughts of Mona and the audience on that day. Some women had begun to spread rumor that the innocent girl is impregnated by one of her rapists. The men began to wonder as what will be the fate of such an illegitimate child. The young men swore to each other that if she is his sister he will have burnt her alive with the bastard child inside her womb. Only very few young girls had shed tears for Mona, for they knew and understood that such a tragedy could have happened to any one of them. After 1 hour, the judge and his jury returned to the courtroom. All the people except Mona stood on their feet. 2 female guards caught hold of her shoulders and forced her to stand up. When the judge and his jury occupied their seats, there is great silence inside the court. All the people sat silently as if they are in a mosque waiting for the imam to begin the prayer or in a funeral procession. After a few minutes of dead silence, the judge cleared his throat and began to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, for security purpose this court has sent Al-Wayesh and his gang and all other suspects back to Al-Gadarif Central Jail. During the 1-hour break, the jury and I have met and discussed the crime. After carefully examining the kidnap and rape crime, which has been committed against the innocent girl, Mona Salah al-Din Hashim, by Al-Wayesh and his gang, this court has found all the suspects guilty. On this basis, the court has passed the following sentences on all the suspects. Osman Mahmoud al-Ajabu, who is known as Al-Wayesh or the Beast, 14 years imprisonment under hard labor. Omar Ibrahim Mustafa Gabber, who is known as Al-Sahir or the Magician, 14 years imprisonment under hard labor, plus 2 years for escaping from jail. All the other 5 criminals, 14 years imprisonment under hard labor. All the so-called singers and dancers, 4 years imprisonment. The former police inspector Hussein Hassan Hassanan, 6 months imprisonment and to be expelled from the police force service forever. Mr. Osman Al-Taib, 6 months, and all the money which he paid as bribe to the former police inspector Hussein is to be confiscated by the government. The good citizen, Walid Hamza, who directed the police authority to the crime scene and also uncovered the bribe crime and assisted the police to arrest the escapee Al-Sahir, is to be rewarded by the government with the amount of money up to 1 million Sudanese pounds. Court. The people had already become extremely angry with the protection the court had given to Al-Wayesh and his gang. When they learned that the gang had been sent away for security purpose, they are outraged. They had become extremely furious when they understood that neither Al-Wayesh nor any of his 5 gangsters is sentenced to death. As soon as the judge passed his sentence, the audience stood on their feet and began to voice their protests. Their protests soon changed to shouting and screaming. When their voices are not heard, they started to beat their hands on the benches, doors, and windows. The police immediately surrounded the judge and his jury. With heavy security, the judge and his jury managed to leave the courtroom. After them, the VIP door is opened and the powerful men of the society are escorted to their cars one by the police officers. By now the mob had become out of control. The angry crowd began to break the courtroom's windows and doors and started to attack the police officers. The police at first tried to control the mob with their batons. When those weapons proved to be ineffective, the people are dispersed with tear gas. That day, if weren't for Salah, Sami, and Walid, the innocent girl Mona would have been once again raped on broad daylight by the angry mob. Her 3 friends surrounded her as soon as the trial is over and taken her out of the courtroom and stopped a taxi and dropped her safely at her house. The good citizen is rewarded by the government for his good deeds. Nevertheless, the innocent girl received no compensation or a single word of comfort or consolation by the judge. He did not even mention her name while reading his sentences against her kidnappers, abusers, and rapists. They should at least impute to her the huge amount of the bribe that the evil old man had paid to free the criminal Omar al-Sahir, or the magician, which the government had redeemed from the corrupt police inspector Hussein. Instead of compensating the poor innocent girl, the government had confiscated, or rather had stolen, the money of the old man.